Millions of rand in income support for struggling early childhood development centres and employees is reportedly stuck in provincial treasuries as they missed a March payment deadline. Some was disbursed in mid-April, but Professor Eric Atmore, head of the Centre for Early Childhood Development in Cape Town, says the centres are still not getting the money that they need from government. He joins us now. Professor, thank you for being with us. This is incredible. Why is it stuck in some provincial treasuries?
Good evening, Francis, and good evening to your viewers. I think there's been a massive cover-up and smokes and mirrors and incompetence and basically a lack of care from the National Social Development Department. This money was announced in October 2020. That's 7.5 months ago. And it should have flowed already. But as we sit talking this evening, only 3% has found its way into the pockets of an ECD worker. Now, there are a number of reasons for this, the predominance being incompetence at the national department and in the provinces. How are you not able to spend 1.3 billion rand that the president has said you must spend in 7.5 months? And then all the bureaucracy and the complexities that go with this. You know, if you imagine an ECD worker in CECD or up into Yondo, she hasn't got electricity, she hasn't got water, she's got no hardware, she hasn't got data, she hasn't got the technical know-how, and she's expected to apply online with complex bureaucratic application forms in order to be verified. It's just not happening. And many people think that this is a deliberate strategy in retaliation for the 2 court cases that the social development minister lost.
Well, that would be incredible. Firstly, do you have evidence that only 3% has been disbursed, like you say, after 7 months? Obviously, it had to go down from national to provincial departments, but only 3%? Can you prove that?
Yes, I can prove it. That amount, the number of ECD workers who've been approved is 116,578. The number that has been paid is 9,051. And that comes from the national spokesperson for the Minister of Social Development, Lumka Olifant. She is on public record as saying that 9,051 ECD workers have received a payment, which in some instances is a part payment, and in others is a full payment. So those are not numbers that are sucked out by some activists sitting in Cape Town. That comes from the minister's spokesperson.
Yeah. Can you put this all into context? Because initially there was concern about PPE. So we spoke, I think, at that point when these early childhood development centres just simply couldn't open because they didn't have the PPE required. So that meant the kids couldn't come, even when they were allowed to come, and the parents couldn't go to work. That was a huge issue. Where's that issue? Is that resolved now that this is funding for the teachers who lost income because the centres were closed and the management? Is that correct?
This money is income support for those ECD workers who did not earn an income because the centres were closed. Let me whittle down the 1.3 billion for you. In October, President Ramaphosa announced 1.3 billion. Immediately, 712 million was lost because, in the words of National Treasury, the National Social Development Department could not get together a coherent plan of how they would spend that money. That's 55% of that 1.3 billion disappeared, never to return to the early childhood sector. 92 million was set aside for social workers. We're still waiting to see them. And the salary support component was 496 million. And as I've said, of that, only 38 million has been paid out. And that's 3% of President Ramaphosa's announcement. It is an untenable situation where ECD workers across the country have been let down yet again.
What are the implications for the centres themselves and the children at the centres?
Well, the implications are visible every day. As we work in communities across the country, we see that early childhood centres are closed, and around 80% are closed. Those that are open are operating at much lower capacity, anything from 20 to 30%. Those teachers are not getting paid. The children are not getting that nutritious meal, which is their right. And those centres are closing daily. We've got numerous case studies and stories of women who are devastated by the uncaring approach of the National Department of Social Development. What makes it worse is that any request from the community and non-profit sector for information or for speeding up of these payments is met with stony, total silence. It's really abysmal.
Yeah. Well, you made an incredible claim that maybe the minister is being vengeful here. Do you stand by that? That would mean that a government minister is purposefully, you could even say, harming children and these very crucial centres across our country.
I have no doubt about that. Remember, there was a court case. The Social Development Minister refused to open ECD centres when grade R classes and ECD centres linked to the Department of Basic Education were opened. Together with a number of other actors, we went to court, and the High Court ruled that the minister has to open those ECD centres the very next day. That was the 7th of July. Immediately after that, the minister issued an instruction that ECD subsidies, the 17 Rand per qualifying child per day, that about 25% of children get, that subsidy was to be stopped. Now, that was in direct retaliation for having lost that court case. And we've got no doubt that the slow uptake of the ECD income supplement to ECD workers is linked to that as well. It's a harsh comment to make, but absolutely true. You know, the minister has not come out and said a single word of support or guidance or encouragement to ECD workers. And there's certainly been no haste in which to make the payments, other than bureaucratic mumbo-jumbo about regulations, etc.
All right, we'll see if we can give the department a right of reply, but thank you for your time tonight. That was Professor Eric Atmore, head of the Centre for Early Childhood Development in Cape Town. And certainly a huge worry if he's right that only 3%, he says that comes from the department itself, of the monies for these ECD workers that weren't earning for a very long time and are needed to look after these children has been dispersed.